Now we are heading into part 2. We are officially launching part 2 of our Canadian NHL preview tour, and we're heading to oil country as we bring in the host of the Nielson show on TSN1260 in Edmonton, among many other podcasts and projects and oil streams and all these sorts of things. Dustin Nielson. Dustin, how's everything going today?
Hey, I'm doing all right, boys. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing
Fantastic.
fine. We're super happy to have you on here because we're going to dive into the Oilers really quickly here, Dustin. But just before we do, I was scrolling your Twitter earlier today, and something caught my eye. And I just want to ask you why Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather is the best thing for boxing right now.
Oh, no. Shouldn't have gone there. It's the worst possible thing for boxing. Like, this is where we're at with boxing now, where you've got, and let's be honest here, Floyd Mayweather is a human piece of trash. But from a boxing level, I mean, he's one of, if not the greatest boxer of all time. And he's going to fight some YouTuber who's had one fight against a fellow YouTuber, and he lost it. Like, he didn't even win the fight against the other streamer. And now he gets to fight Floyd Mayweather. And I don't care if it's exhibition or not. Like, I'm totally on board with, like, celebrities fighting celebrities. Like, I would love to see Jose Canseco fight one of the Paul brothers. Give me that. I'll watch that.
Ooh.
But to have one of the greatest boxers of all time fight one of these clowns, like, it just doesn't. Like, boxing's got to be better than this. I wish it was better than this. And apparently right now it's not, which is frustrating.
Dustin, how much money do you have in your savings account? Because I think we got to get Jose Canseco against the Paul brothers going in a fatal three-way match or something like that.
Yeah,
Just
put him in a cage and let him
man.
go.
Like, he wants to make this happen. Let's do it. Like, I'm ready for that.
I'm in. Now we're going to get into the Oilers. Dustin, now just have a look at your screen. Kayla's going to throw up a off-season recap, if you will, to this point for the Edmonton Oilers. And Kayla, once you get that up there, are you guys paying attention back there? There it is. There it is.
And I'll just say this. Can I just say this? Your guys' graphics are on point. Like, I love the way that this thing looks right now. This is awesome.
Like the old school TVs, the tube TVs that we got going on here, kind of for the guest calls? I like it. It's been
good
fun.
Stuff.
Yeah,
this looks like every house that I ever had until I was like 30 with these types of TVs. So
that was kind of the design plan.
That's what we were after.
Yeah.
So yeah, throw that graphic back up here, guys. Let's get into it. The Oilers last year ended with a 37-25-9 record for 83 points. They're heading into next season with a hypothetical $0 in cap space. They've added guys like Kyle Turris. I'm putting Jesse Puljujarvi on this list, and we'll get into that in a sec here, Dustin. Dominic Cahoon, Tyson Barrie, of course, who's featured in the image there. Anton Forsberg in net as for a depth goaltender. And they brought back, of course, Mike Smith, which I didn't include. But they've lost Marcus Granlund. Mike Green retired. Thomas Yurko's gone. Your boy. Andreas Athanasiou, Benning's gone. Sheehan is currently unsigned. They're coming back with Leon Draisaitl, of course, who led their team and the league in scoring last year. And their top draft pick was Dylan Holloway with the 14th pick. Let's bring Dustin back in. Dustin, when I go over that list, who strikes you first off as either subtraction or addition that might have the biggest impact on this team going forward?
Just quickly, I'll start with the subtractions. And to be honest with you, I don't really think they lost much. Like, if, as you lay out that group of guys that they lost, Athanasiou they brought in, and the trade doesn't look good, but he really didn't bring anything to the table. Riley Sheahan was an okay penalty killer, but I really don't think they lost much. As far as what they're getting and who they're bringing in, I think the answer has to be Tyson Barrie, especially with Oscar Klefbom being out. I mean, Oscar Klefbom being out has obviously freed up some space for them to get Tyson Barrie. And Tyson Barrie, in my opinion, is one of the best power play defensemen in the National Hockey League, and now he's going to have a chance to be on the best power play in the National Hockey League. So you can look at it and go, wow, Tyson Barrie's going to make that power play even better. But their power play last year was like all-time good. It was one of the best ever. So if you got McDavid and Draisaitl, the power play should still be good. So I'm sure Barrie will put up a ton of points there. What'll be interesting for me is what he does 5-on-5, because they're going to need him to carry top 4 minutes 5-on-5. The right side right now is Adam Larson, who could have some tough matchups. He could be that guy that gets out there quite a bit against some of the other team's top guys. Ethan Bear obviously had a great season last year. And then you got Tyson Barrie. So the right side is interesting because how do they find ice time for everybody 5-on-5? And if they can get a good season 5-on-5 out of Tyson Barrie, I think that helps take that blue line to the next level. So they'll need more than just power play contributions from him. And if he's capable of that, I think he puts this team in a pretty decent spot.
Nice. And you know what, too, Dustin, when you look at this team, right, it's McDavid, Draisaitl. It's kind of been the narrative for the last couple of years. They're very top heavy, and it's a nuclear weapon when you put them together and essentially on 5-on-5, right? You've got them on the power play together, but for this team to truly reach its peak, does Dave Tippett have to, I guess, split them up? Do they have to find a way to be able to play the full season, I guess, with those two split? Or again, do you just go with the nuclear weapon and commit to it for an entire season?
Caitlin, maybe before we get into this answer from Dustin, can you just put the hypothetical lines up that I have there for Edmonton lines? This is from Daily Faceoff, Dustin.
Love
so don't take
hypothetical
this.
lines.
Oh, I know. Don't take this as what it is, but this is just from Daily Faceoff. So this could be a potential option. Now, you're probably going to switch this around, but go ahead now and talk about the lines here.
Yeah, like if you look at it, I mean, from as far as stacking McDavid and Draisaitl, what we realized under Dave Tippett through last year, I mean, Tippett got to a point where he just decided that this team, if they're going to be successful, they're going to have McDavid and Draisaitl on different lines, and that's what they managed to do last year. And in fact, you know, the Draisaitl, Yamamoto, Nugent Hopkins line, when united, was one of, if not the best in the National Hockey League after January, up until the shutdown last year. And then in the playoffs, in the bubble, when they resumed, Dave Tippett did not go back to it until there were 7 minutes left in the final game. He wanted to get Nugent Hopkins and Connor McDavid going to have two legitimate scoring lines. Now, any line that McDavid's on is a legitimate scoring line, but he's trying to get that winger, putting Ryan Nugent Hopkins on that left side. So I would think that's probably how it starts again. And if we bring that line combination back up, I mean, I can kind of lay it out for you very quickly with Draisaitl, and it'll be interesting to see. Draisaitl will have Yamamoto on the right side. Like, that's one duo that we would know. And then you'll have McDavid with Nugent Hopkins on the left side. Dominic Cahoon, as you see here, likely gets the first shot, considering he's buddies, and him and Draisaitl just have some natural chemistry together. The interesting spot in this top six will be up on the right side with McDavid and Nugent Hopkins, because Zach Kassian will probably, like, in the dream world for me, Jesse Puljujarvi gets that spot, gets to stay there all year. I think he could play well there. But Zach Kassian, even though he didn't play well in the return to play, he probably gets the first crack in that spot. The wild card here might be James Neal, who can play both wings, and there's really not much room for him on the left side in the top six. So maybe James Neal makes a push there to play with Nugent Hopkins and Connor McDavid as well. But that right side outside of Yamamoto alongside Draisaitl is pretty much in flux, I think, heading into camp.
Let's jump on the hamster wheel for a sec here, Dustin. Jesse Puljujarvi, you mentioned him. Obviously, I know you're a huge fan of him because you retweet every single goal he ever scores. But
yeah, it's not many.
Well, hey, you're right. Let's be real. But you know, he's coming back. He's got a couple healthy hips. Let's start with that. But where does he fit on this team? Did they give him a chance right away? Like you mentioned, maybe they don't. Or does he crack that top line? Is he going to be the fourth overall pick that he's been supposed to be in his career?
Yeah, I don't know if he ever meets those high expectations that you would have coming in a draft with, you know, Pierre-Luc Dubois and Patrick Laine and Austin Matthews. I mean, I think that high-end upside's probably out of the mix here. But once again, and this is why we all thought he'd be back last year, because it's a fresh start. It's a fresh start with the organization. Maybe not necessarily a fresh start with some of the guys who you might not have great chemistry with, or at least haven't shown to have that with so far, with Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, even though when he plays with Connor McDavid, actually, it's a pretty productive pairing. It really is. So I wonder if Dave Tippett looks at that here at some point. But I think the plan, at least what we've been discussing here in Edmonton, is you could very likely see him with Kyle Turris and Tyler Ennis on a third line to start the season. And then if Jesse Puljujarvi can, you know, do a little bit at 5-on-5, like I said, that right side up front is very much in flux. So I mean, I would assume probably within the first 10 or 15 games of the season, you'll see him at some point get at least a look with Nugent Hopkins and Connor McDavid. And I think he'd be a great fit for those guys. I mean, he's a big body who, I know a lot of people say, oh, he needs to get to the net more. If you watch the goals that he has scored in the National Hockey League, none of them are pretty. I mean, he's banging in a bunch of garbage around the net. So I honestly think that he could end up being a good fit there. And if he does click with those guys, I mean, the offensive production should come for sure. And you mentioned maybe the most important thing. He's got two healthy hips. Like, I'll remember they had a meeting with the Oilers, and it was Hitchcock and some of those guys, and they said, yeah, Jesse would always come in and complain about his legs being sore. And I mean, it turns out the guy needed to have surgery on both hips. So, you know, he looks like he's moving extremely well in Finland. You know, does it click for him? We'll see. I mean, I just hope that, you know, let's say he comes back and in the first 10 games it doesn't look good. I hope people aren't all over him being like, that's it, he's done again. Like, let's give him some time with a new coaching staff, with new hips, and see how he plays.
One of the more understated signings in the offseason, but potentially one with a lot of impact in terms of the Oilers lineup is Kyle Turris. He's coming in. Obviously, we all know that he's had a disappointing career in terms of kind of where he started and how it's turned out, but does he kind of fit the Oilers perfectly and give them a lot of roster flexibility going into next year?
Yeah, I think the flexibility that I just mentioned might end up being important because, you know, they sign him projected as a third line center, which is probably where he starts. The interesting thing is that the guy he's essentially replacing is Riley Sheahan, and they're different types of players. Like Riley Sheahan was, you know, your every penalty kill. He's out there first. He'll take the important draws for you. Kyle Turris is seen as more of a, you know, semi-driver of a line at this stage of his career on a third line with maybe Ennis and Puljujarvi. But with that being said, you know, he could be a guy who slides up on the wing in your top six as well. Like if nothing else is clicking and, you know, and maybe Gaetan Haas emerges as a solid bottom six center option and you're okay with playing Jujar Kara as maybe your fourth line center, then maybe there's some room for Kyle Turris to actually slide up the lineup because we know he's played with skilled guys in the past. I did not think the Oilers would get him at this number. Like overall, Ken Holland did a very good job this offseason. For less than $8 million, he brought in Tyson Barrie. He brought in Kyle Turris. He brought back Jesse Puljujarvi. He managed to bring in Dominic Cahoon, which a lot of people thought might have been out the window after all the dust settled on their early signings. So, you know, he did a pretty good job. And Kyle Turris, and we'll see how it goes. I don't know if there's a lot of downside because I don't know if there's a lot of expectations for Kyle Turris right now, but there might be at least some sort of minimal upside.
Nice. And when you maybe, I guess when we transfer from the bottom six forward group to the 4x6 in net, Mikko Koskinen, when that contract was signed, I mean, obviously it was Peter Chiarelli's kind of last deal. When you hear that the Oilers were in on Jacob Markstrom this year and that they didn't get him, and you got to go back to Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith as your duo. As an Oilers fan, is that the tandem that gives you confidence? Is that the tandem that is able to take you back to the playoffs? Or is it, again, we're got to rely on the guys up front to maybe carry the load?
Well, confidence is probably a bad word. Like, I don't know if confidence would be the best way to do it. I mean, Koskinen, his numbers last year weren't bad. He had like a .917 save percentage. And Mike Smith at one point went on a run where I think he won 12 of 17, which essentially pushed them into the playoffs, really, and had them in second in the Pacific Division. So even with their goaltending last year, which was kind of up and down the entire time, they were still second in the division when the season came to a sudden close. So it was good enough to be playoff goaltending last year. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in a Canadian division this year. If that's what we're trending towards, and maybe for the full season, I don't think it's debatable. It's probably the worst goaltending in the country. So if that's going to be the case, you're going to need, if Koskinen can give you a .917 save percentage again, you're going to be in the playoffs. It seems like there are still some inconsistencies in his game that lead us to question him still. Numbers perspective last year, maybe we shouldn't. It'll be interesting to see what the workload's going to be in a shortened, compact season with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. I don't think handing Koskinen the job would be the best thing for him. He seems to do a little bit better when he's fighting for that job. If Mike Smith can provide a battle, you know, maybe they're going to be in an okay spot, but you know, the goaltend, if they can get goaltending, this team's going to be really good. If they don't, I think they would still have a shot to be a playoff team simply because I do expect McDavid and Draisaitl to completely torch all the other blue lines in a Canadian division anyway. So, you know, they've got that going for them. If everything else falls into place, they could actually be pretty good.
Yeah, I saw your video clip about torching the blue lines in the Canadian division. That was interesting, and it's an interesting thought because, you know, a lot of people have been saying about the Canadian division. A lot of the teams in the Canadian division could hypothetically make the playoffs in their own division, let alone in a Canadian division. But it could be a lot of run and gun, like you kind of mentioned in the video clip I'm referring to that I saw you on Twitter. I think it was it your two guys and a goalie that I saw that on? Or where did you say that?
Yeah, it might have been the Oil Stream, one of those two. They're basically the same, just branded differently. Don't tell anybody.
Great sponsors, by the way. That Popeyes. Woo! Popeyes, love them.
Yeah, they're delicious. Thank you for that. Yeah, get them on DoorDash and Uber Eats. There we go.
Love it.
There you go.
But, you know, just like on the Canadian division, like,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that anyway. So go ahead.
Yeah, like it's not just the Oilers. It's Elias Pedersen and Bo Horvat. It's Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. It's Laine and Scheifele and Wheeler and Kyle Connor and Tavares and Matthews and Nylander and Marner and, you know, the Kachuk brothers in various locations. And I mean, whoever Montreal is going to try to put on a power play, I guess. Like, there's a lot of offensive talent in a Canadian division and a bunch of blue lines that I would say are likely average at best when you look around the league. So I think a Canadian division, like, I don't want to see this moving forward, but a Canadian division this year, I don't have anything bad to say about that. I think it would be the most entertaining of all the divisions on so many different levels. And I think because of that, you know, with the top end talent that the Oilers have, I think they might end up being in an okay spot.
And just to build on what you said about the blue lines, Colin McAnulty out of Ottawa is chiming in, and he says, Matt Murray has less than a .900 save percentage last year in Pittsburgh, and now he's on his way to a worse team. So Sens should have the worst goaltending in the country. So, hey, I mean, you look at every single radio host across the country, every single reporter is all saying Sens in seventh.
Sens in seventh.
I mean, unless maybe you can find one for me, Dustin. I'm not sure, but I don't think anybody's saying the Sens won't end up in seventh.
I just think it's nice that we all can finally agree on something in 2020, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't see anybody debating that. And I feel sorry for them. I do think they've got like some pieces heading in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, if somebody else finishes dead last in the Canadian division, they should be ashamed of themselves. It's that simple.
Yeah, and maybe that could be their new slogan. Ottawa Senators, uniting the country one season at a time.
Look at that, hey?
You got one more, Max, and we got to let you go, Dustin.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Dustin, Dave Tippett, we alluded to him a little bit earlier. He seems to have been a breath of fresh air, anyways, for an organization that struggled with continuity, right? We heard Ken Holland say it in his opening press conference, right? Continuity, consistency, that's what's going to help develop a winner in Edmonton. Does his message continue to stick with this group and to build off, I guess, an undeniable step forward that was taken last season?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, Dave Tippett last year, and it's very easy, and we do it for all sports all across this country. You guys with the Riders, obviously in Regina, it's very easy to criticize a coach. Like it's so simple to do. And last year, throughout the regular season, I did not find myself coming in to do my show the morning after a game and being like, oh, Tippett's going to get it today. Like, I thought he managed the goaltenders very well last year. He seemed to always go with the right guy. I mean, there might have been one or two misses here or there, but with how many games were played last year, that was pretty good. Throughout the regular season, and then the line combinations weren't really criticized that much in town. I mean, special teams, both power play and penalty kill, were excellent last year. A lot of that is on coaching and his coaching staff. So it was weird because then you got to the series against Chicago and he refused to reunite Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, and Yamamoto. And for the first time in his tenure here in Edmonton, everybody was looking at him going, why won't you put that line back together? Like, this team won the majority of their games when that line was together, and he waited until there was 7 minutes left in game 4 against Chicago until he did it. And I mean, he's sticking to his guns at that point, I guess, trying to prove a point that this team needs Nugent Hopkins and McDavid together in one line and then Draisaitl and Yamamoto together on another to eventually be successful. And maybe a lesson was being sent there. But literally, if I look back to last season, that's really the only thing and it blew my mind because he'd done everything so well. It shocked me that he refused to go back to it. And that's really the only bad thing I can say about Dave Tippett since he came here. I think he's done a really good job, and I think Ken Holland put the right guy in place here. And like I said, I don't mind Ken Holland's moves in this offseason. So, a step in the right direction, which has not been said 2 off seasons in a row in this market in a long time. And I think you can say that right now. And I think that's positive, right?
Nice.
Yeah. I was going to say, quick, somebody check on Kevin Lowe. What's he doing?
Yeah, where is he? Where's he at?
A couple comments, and then we got one more quick one for you. Mm-hmm. Colin McAnulty out of Ottawa again says, Ottawa's new slogan, we send you Serb checks and W's for your favorite NHL team. I like it. Sean Dufour, with an all-Canadian division, we should expect to see even less major network coverage of American divisions. Hockey Night in Canada will be exactly that. So it's a good point. Yep. A lot of Canadian coverage and Canadian network dream. I'm sure Dustin's sitting over there being like, this could be fun.
This could be good.
Last one for you, Dustin, and this is a quick one. Reverse retros. Good? Did they hit? Did they miss? Meh? Like, where do you see the Oilers in terms of their reverse retro?
I liked them. I mean, I didn't love them. I wasn't like, oh my God, I need to buy 5 with all these different guys. Like, but I liked it. I thought there were others that were better. Like the Colorado Avalanche throwback Nordiques thing is just amazing. I have to get my hands on one of those. But you see the complete uniform pop up now with the white gloves and the orange pants. And I like the jersey. I'm not sure I love the rest of the getup just yet. I need to see those white gloves and orange pants on the ice before I can really kind of tell you my full thoughts, because I've never really been a fan of white gloves outside of at the All-Star game. So we'll see if they can pull it off. But I do like the jersey. I'd definitely give it a passing grade.
Okay, I'll take that.
Sorry,
last
Dustin.
one.
Yeah, we got one more that we got to go through anyways. Okay, where did the Oil finish? All Canadian division, 1 through 7, prediction time. Hit it.
Man, I'm going to side with McDavid and Draisaitl and say they finished third. I'll say they finished third in the Canadian division. I think Toronto will be strong again. I like Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg's flying under the radar a little bit. They got the best goalie in the league and the best top 6 in the league. And in a short season, that might be able to carry you. And then after that, I honestly think it's wide open between the teams in the West here. And in a short season, I mean, Draisaitl or McDavid could put up 90 points in 56 games. Like, they really could. So I think I'd have to say that if they get any sort of goaltending, man, they should be able to be a top 3 team in the division.
I like it. Dustin, thank you for joining us tonight. We'll let you go and get back to Tuesday night football or whatever else is going on. But thanks for joining us, and make sure everybody check out Dustin on Twitter and everywhere. He's got a lot of great content. So, Dustin, thanks for checking in with us tonight.
Thanks a ton, Dustin.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys. Have a good rest of the show.
Thank you. Of course, our video guests, as always, are brought to you by the amazing team over at IKS Media. IKS is your premier destination for event planning, live broadcasts, entertainment, video screens, and so much more. Visit iksmedia.ca for more information, and they can make your event the hottest ticket in town. Always the best seat in the house at IKS Media.